For years, my sacrifices were their stepping stones. Then, for my sister's perfect wedding, came the brutal ultimatum: you will lose weight. You're an embarrassment. They thought they'd break me. Instead, they ignited a transformation that would expose their ugliest truths and upend their carefully crafted lives. My childhood wasn't measured in years, but in the ever-expanding space I seemed to occupy, both physically and in the quiet corners of our family's carefully curated image. I was Sarah, but more often I was Sarah, the bigger one, or Sarah, the quiet one, labels stitched onto my identity before I truly understood what they meant. While other children collected scraped knees and colorful trading cards, I collected hushed comments and the subtle, uncomfortable shifts in posture from adults who didn't quite know where to look. Books became my sanctuary, their pages a refuge from a world that often felt too small or too critical. In the silent company of characters who faced down dragons and navigated galaxies, I found a solace that our meticulously kept suburban home rarely offered. My intelligence was a shield, my academic achievements the only currency that seemed to earn a flicker of something resembling pride in my parents' eyes, though it always felt more like a reflection they wanted to see of themselves. My younger sister, Bonnie, was a different creature altogether. She was sunlight and laughter, a whirlwind of effortless charisma that drew people to her like moths to a flame. A year my junior, she possessed an innate social grace that I could only observe with a mixture of admiration and a quiet, aching wistfulness. In our earliest years, I was her fierce protector, the steadfast older sister. But as we navigated the treacherous waters of adolescence, the tide turned. Bonnie blossomed in the high school hallways where I often felt like an awkward shadow. Her popularity became a wall between us, and soon, she wasn't just on the other side of it. She was one of those lobbing, careless words over it, her giggles echoing the casual cruelty of her newfound friends. I remember prom night with a clarity that still stings. I'd spent weeks saving up for my after-school job at the library for a dress, a deep sapphire blue that, for a fleeting moment in the store's forgiving mirror, made me feel almost hopeful. Bonnie, already a junior prom princess, had breezed through her preparations with an entourage of friends and our mother's doting attention. The night of the prom, as I was carefully applying a touch of mascara, feeling a rare flutter of excitement, Bonnie swept into my room. She was looking for her lucky earrings, she said. As she rummaged through my modest jewelry box, she accidentally knocked over a glass of juice I'd left on my desk. It arced through the air in a perfect, horrifying trajectory, landing squarely on the bodice of my sapphire dress. Tears welled, hot and immediate. The stain was enormous, a sticky, dark disaster. Bonnie's apology was a masterpiece of insincere regret. "Oh, Sarah, I'm so clumsy. I'm sure it'll come out." When I, choking back sobs, showed our mother, her response was a sigh of exasperation, not at Bonnie, but at the inconvenience. "Honestly, Sarah, you shouldn't have left your juice there. Bonnie didn't mean it. Don't make such a drama. You can probably still wear it if you put a corsage over it or something." Bonnie, of course, looked angelic and concerned. I ended up not going to prom, the sapphire dress a crumpled testament in my closet to yet another way I was made to feel insignificant. The incident was never mentioned again, absorbed into the family lore as Sarah being overly sensitive. This pattern of blatant favoritism was the wallpaper of my upbringing. My parents, David and Linda, were masters of superficiality. My report cards, adorned with straight A's, were paraded at family gatherings, evidence of their successful parenting. Yet, when I tried to share my passion for astronomy or my anxieties about fitting in, their eyes would glaze over. "That's nice, dear," Mother would say, her attention already drifting. Father, a man who equated emotional depth with unnecessary complications, would offer a brisk, "Don't overthink things, Sarah." Their love, I learned early on, was conditional on my utility and my quiet compliance. Mother's constant refrain was, "What will the neighbors think?" And Father's was a dismissive, "Let's not make a fuss." The financial sacrifices were subtle, insidious. I remember working diligently at that library job, saving every penny for a summer astrophysics program I was desperate to attend after my junior year. The brochure was hidden under my mattress, a secret wellspring of hope. Then, just as I was about to send in my deposit, my parents announced that Bonnie needed new, professional-grade ice skates and coaching for a regional competition. The money I'd painstakingly saved, the money they knew was for my program, was borrowed with vague promises of repayment. "It's an investment in Bonnie's future, Sarah," Mother had said, as if my own future was a trivial concern. Family helps family. Bonnie got her skates, and my astrophysics dream dissolved like mist. I never mentioned it, swallowing the bitterness alongside my pride. What was the point? My initial flaw, the one they exploited so effortlessly, was that desperate, aching need for their approval, a yearning so profound it made me avoid conflict at all costs. I internalized the blame, believing that if I were just thinner, prettier, more like Bonnie, then maybe their love wouldn't feel so conditional, so rationed. There was one small, flickering light in the extended family constellation. Aunt Carol, Mother's younger sister. She was different, with a bohemian flair and a way of looking at you like she actually saw you, not just the version your parents presented. During her infrequent visits, she'd find me in my room, surrounded by books, and genuinely ask about what I was reading. "You've got a remarkable mind, Sarah," she'd said once, her gaze kind. "Don't ever let anyone dull your shine." Her words were small comfort, but they were a lifeline, a hint that perhaps the fault wasn't entirely mine. Years passed. I escaped to a university in a different state, throwing myself into my studies. I built a career as a software engineer, a field where logic reigned and my abilities were valued. The distance was a balm, and I found a measure of peace, a quiet confidence that had been impossible to cultivate under my family's roof. Contact was limited to obligatory holiday calls and birthday texts. Life was manageable. Then came the email from Mother announcing a family gathering. Bonnie was bringing her long-term boyfriend, Mark, and there was exciting news. A part of me, the part that never quite gave up hope, felt a flicker of anticipation. I agreed to fly home for a long weekend. The initial greetings were warm enough, a carefully constructed tableau of familial affection. Bonnie was radiant, and Mark seemed pleasant, if a little overwhelmed by my family's particular brand of intensity. Then, over dinner, Bonnie, with a theatrical flourish, extended her left hand, a diamond sparkling on her finger. She was engaged. A chorus of congratulations erupted. I offer mine genuinely, a small smile playing on my lips. For a moment, it felt like a normal family celebration. But the equilibrium was short-lived, the calm before the inevitable storm. The spotlight, as it always did, eventually found its way to me, and a familiar chill began to creep into the air. The initial glow of Bonnie's engagement celebration began to dim as soon as the dessert plates were cleared. It started, as it often did, with Bonnie. Her eyes, sparkling with a mixture of triumph and something less charitable, settled on me. "So, Sarah," she began, her voice honey-sweet, a tone I'd learned to recognize as a prelude to a sting. "Your job's going well, I hear? That's great." A beat of silence. "But still flying solo, huh? And, well, she gestured vaguely towards me, a delicate flick of her wrist that encompassed my entire being. "Still rocking the same, comfortable look?" The air thickened. I could feel the familiar heat rising in my cheeks. My accomplishments, my career, the life I had painstakingly built for myself miles away from their suffocating orbit, all of it evaporated under her casual, cutting gaze. Before I could formulate a response, Mother chimed in, her expression a perfect mask of maternal concern. "Bonnie has a point, dear. We do worry about you. It's not healthy, all that extra weight. And at your age, not being settled." She trailed off, letting the unspoken judgment hang heavy in the room. Father nodded solemnly. "Your mother's right, Sarah. Bonnie's setting a wonderful example. A perfect family image is so important, especially now, with her marrying into the Miller family. They're quite prominent, you know." My stomach churned. It was the same old song, a chorus of disapproval I knew by heart. My carefully constructed independence felt like a flimsy shield against their united front. Mark, Bonnie's fiancé, shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his gaze fixed on his empty coffee cup, a silent testament to his unwillingness or inability to intervene. The conversation then veered into wedding plans, and Bonnie, emboldened by our parents' support, turned her attention back to me, a new, calculating glint in her eyes. "Sarah, you're so organized and good with details," she cooed. "You'd be an absolute lifesaver handling all the vendor confirmations and a few of the smaller arrangements, wouldn't you? It'd take so much pressure off me." Mother immediately seized upon the idea. "What a wonderful thought, Bonnie. And Sarah, since your career is going so well." Here, a pointed look that underscored my single status as a curious byproduct of this success. "You wouldn't mind covering the cost of the rehearsal dinner, would you? Think of it as your special wedding gift to your sister." The audacity of it was breathtaking. Not only was I expected to be the unpaid wedding assistant, but also to finance a significant portion of it, all while my very appearance was deemed a potential blight on the proceedings. I murmured something non-committal, a knot of resentment tightening in my chest. The true ambush, however, was yet to come. A few days later, after I'd returned to my own apartment, my own life, Mother called. Her tone was brisk, businesslike. "Sarah, we need to have a serious talk about your role in the wedding. Specifically, your appearance." I gripped the phone, a sense of dread washing over me. "What about my appearance, Mom?" "Well, dear," she said, her voice dropping into that confidential, slightly reproving tone she used when she was about to deliver an unpalatable truth for my own good. "Bonnie's photographer is top tier, very expensive, and the Millers will have so many important guests there. Frankly, Sarah, for Bonnie's sake and for the family's reputation, you must lose a significant amount of weight before the wedding. We simply can't have you looking like that in the official photographs. It's not an option." The word struck me with physical force, like a slap. Like that, as if I were an unsightly object, an embarrassment to be managed. Bonnie, who was apparently on the extension, piped up, her voice devoid of any real warmth. "And Mom's right, Sarah. I mean, I want you to be my bridesmaid, of course, but I need you to look the part. My wedding has to be perfect. Every detail. You understand, don't you?" Father's voice then rumbled on the line, adding the final seal of familial decree. "It's not a big ask, Sarah. It's a small sacrifice for your sister, for the family. We expect you to make the effort." Silence hummed on the line, heavy with their expectation of my compliance. My throat felt tight, my heart pounding a dull, painful rhythm against my ribs. Years of unspoken resentments, of swallowed humiliations, of feeling perpetually inadequate, swirled within me. The casual cruelty of their ultimatum, the sheer entitlement, it was all there laid bare. In that moment, something inside me didn't just snap, it fractured a deep, seismic shift that changed the landscape of my inner world. The familiar, suffocating cloak of shame was still there, but beneath it, a different emotion began to uncurl, a cold, clear, razor-sharp anger. It wasn't the hot, impulsive anger that leads to tears and shouting matches. It was a quiet, focused fury, the kind that clarifies rather than confuses. I looked around my own apartment, at the life I had built, the small successes that were mine alone. And then I thought of them, of their narrow, judgmental world, their love that felt more like a leash. "I see," I said, my voice surprisingly calm, almost detached. "Thank you for making your expectations so clear." Before they could respond, before they could layer on more guilt or feign concern, I ended the call. I sank onto my sofa, the phone slipping from my numb fingers. The room was silent, but my mind was a maelstrom. They had thrown down the gauntlet. They expected me to crumble, to capitulate, to contort myself into their acceptable image. For the first time in my life, the thought of fighting back, not with tears or pleas, but with a strength they couldn't comprehend, began to take root. This wasn't just about weight anymore. It was about my dignity, my autonomy, my right to exist without their constant, crushing judgment. Their ultimatum was meant to break me. Instead, it became the catalyst for a revolution they would never see coming. The Sarah who always bent was about to learn how to stand. Returning to my city, the chill of their ultimatum still clinging to me, I didn't crumble. Instead, a steely resolve, forged in the fires of years of quiet humiliations, began to solidify within me. This transformation wouldn't be for them, not for their perfect wedding photos or their pristine family image. This would be for Sarah. My first call was to find a personal trainer. I found Maria online. Her bio resonated. She navigated her own significant weight loss journey and now dedicated herself to empowering others. During our first meeting, Maria's approach was refreshingly holistic. This isn't just about a number on the scale, Sarah, she'd said, her eyes kind but firm. This is about finding your strength inside and out. The body will follow where the mind leads. Her gym became my sanctuary and my proving ground. Every bead of sweat felt like washing away a layer of their judgment. Every conquered physical challenge a small act of rebellion. My second crucial step was seeking professional help to unpack the emotional baggage I'd carried for so long. Dr. Evans, a therapist recommended by a colleague, had a calm, insightful demeanor. Our sessions were like slowly lancing a festering wound. She helped me see the patterns of emotional manipulation in my family, to understand that their criticisms were reflections of their own inadequacies, not my failings. Sarah, she explained one afternoon, you've been conditioned to seek their approval, but true validation comes from within. Your journey now is about reclaiming your narrative, defining your worth on your own terms. She equipped me with tools for assertive communication and strategies for setting impenetrable boundaries. With this newfound clarity, I also took a proactive step they would never have anticipated. I scheduled a consultation with a lawyer, Ms. Davies, a sharp, no-nonsense woman. I laid out the vague financial expectations my family had hinted at regarding the wedding and the history of the borrowed funds for Bonnie's ice skates years ago. It's always wise to understand your position, Ms. Davies had advised, outlining ways to protect my assets and clarify any informal financial agreements, should the need arise. It was a quiet act of self-preservation, a strategic move that made me feel less like a victim and more like a woman in control of her own destiny. The months that followed were a period of intense focus. The physical changes were undeniable. Pounds melted away, replaced by lean muscle. My energy levels soared. I discovered a love for vibrant clothes I'd never dared to wear, styles that celebrated my changing form instead of hiding it. I even took a leap and had my long, dark hair cut into a chic, shoulder-length style and dyed a luminous blonde, a color that made my skin glow and my eyes sparkle. Looking in the mirror became an act of rediscovery. I saw a woman I was proud of, a woman whose strength shone from the inside out. It wasn't just about the weight loss. It was about the confidence that radiated from me, the self-possession in my stance, the clarity in my gaze. Then came the summons. An invitation from Mother for a family lunch a couple of weeks before the wedding, to finalize some of Bonnie's plans and have a nice catch-up. My stomach did a familiar flip, but this time it was mixed with a strange, calm anticipation. Dr. Evans and I had role-played various scenarios. I was ready. I chose my outfit with care. A tailored dress in a striking emerald green that highlighted my new figure, paired with heels that made me feel powerful. As I walked into my parents' home, the reactions were instantaneous and deeply satisfying. Mother's jaw literally dropped, a half-eaten canopy forgotten in her hand. Father stared, his usual bluster momentarily silenced. For a fleeting second, I saw something that might have been grudging admiration in their eyes, quickly masked by a flustered attempt at normalcy. "Sarah, you look wonderful," Mother managed, her voice a little too bright. Bonnie's entrance was delayed. When she finally swept in, she initially overlooked me, a familiar tactic of dismissal. Then, as I stood to greet her, she did a full double-take. Her perfectly made-up face went through a rapid series of micro-expressions: shock, disbelief, and then, unmistakably, a flash of raw, unfiltered envy. She recovered quickly, forcing a brittle smile. Sarah, wow, you cleaned up nicely, she said, her eyes raking over me. Then, in a move that reeked of her need to reassert dominance, she reached out and poked my stomach. Solid. Guess all that dieting paid off. I took a polite but firm step back. I've been focusing on my health, yes. Mark, Bonnie's fiancé, a pleasant but somewhat bland young man named Mark, offered a genuine, "You look fantastic, Sarah." Bonnie shot him a look that could freeze water. The lunch began with an undercurrent of tension. My parents and Bonnie peppered me with questions about my transformation, their initial shock giving way to a strange, almost resentful curiosity. "So, what's your secret?" Bonnie pressed, a fake sweetness lacing her tone. "One of those crazy Hollywood diets? Or did you have a little help? Some surgery, perhaps?" I met her gaze, my own calm and unwavering. "No surgery, Bonnie. Just consistent hard work, healthy eating, and a commitment to myself. You might find it surprisingly effective." Mother, sensing Bonnie's rising irritation, quickly interjected, but her attempt to smooth things over only fanned the flames. "Well, honestly, Sarah, you look even more stunning than Bonnie now. And she's the bride. We'll have to make sure you don't completely steal the show." Bonnie's smile tightened. The mask was slipping. Then came the inevitable critique, the attempt to claw back control. "You know, Sarah," Mother said, her head tilted critically, "that blonde hair, it's a bit dramatic, isn't it? Especially with Bonnie being blonde, too. Perhaps you should consider toning it down for the wedding. Go back to your lovely natural brown. You don't want to overshadow the bride, dear." Father nodded sagely. "Your mother has a point. You wouldn't want to cause any unnecessary distractions." Bonnie seized her cue. "Yes, Sarah. I mean, with the weight loss, you're already going to be noticeable. Do you really need to have the same hair color as me, too? It's like you're trying to compete." It was then, listening to their thinly veiled criticisms, their desperate attempts to diminish me, to shrink me back into the box they'd always kept me in, that the full weight of their toxicity hit me with renewed force. They didn't want me happy or healthy. They wanted me manageable. My success, even the physical transformation they had initially demanded, was a threat to their established order, a challenge to Bonnie's reign as the family's undisputed star. A profound sense of disappointment washed over me, but it was quickly followed by an icy resolve. I had come prepared for this. Dr. Evans' words echoed in my mind. "Assert your truth calmly, Sarah. You don't need their validation." I placed my fork down gently. The clink seemed to reverberate in the suddenly silent room. "Actually," I began, my voice even and steady, a stark contrast to the turbulent emotions Bonnie was now openly displaying. "I'm very happy with my hair. My stylist thinks it suits me perfectly, and more importantly, I love it. My appearance, just like Bonnie's, is my own choice to make." Mother opened her mouth to protest, but I continued, addressing them all. "For years, I've tried to fit into the mold you've expected of me. I've listened to the critiques, absorbed the concerns, and tried to be the daughter, the sister you wanted. The truth is, my efforts were never truly about my well-being, were they? They were about maintaining a certain image, ensuring Bonnie remained the focal point." I turned to my mother. "Mother, you've always been deeply concerned with appearances, with what others will think. Perhaps that anxiety is something you need to explore for yourself, rather than projecting it onto my choices. My happiness isn't contingent on your approval of my hair color." To my father, I said, "Father, your definition of family support has often felt conditional on my silence and my willingness to diminish myself. I'm no longer willing to pay that price for a sense of belonging that was never truly unconditional." Finally, I looked directly at Bonnie. Her face was flushed, her eyes narrowed with fury. "Bonnie, this is your wedding, and I genuinely wish you happiness with Mark. But my life, my body, and my choices are mine, and they are not designed to make you feel more secure or to ensure you're the only one shining. Your apparent belief that my self-improvement is somehow a personal attack on you speaks volumes about your own insecurities, not about any ill intent on my part." I paused, letting my words sink in. "You demanded I change because I was an embarrassment. Now that I have, it seems my transformation is still not to your liking. It's clear that no matter what I do, it will never be enough by your standards. And I've finally realized I don't need it to be. I push my chair back slowly. I came here today hoping for a mature, respectful conversation. It's evident that's not going to happen. I will not participate in this cycle of criticism and control any longer. With a calm that surprised even myself, I picked up my purse. Thank you for lunch. And I walked out, leaving behind a tableau of stunned silence, simmering resentment, and for the first time, perhaps a flicker of dawning comprehension that their power over me was irrevocably broken. The drive back to my hotel was a blur of emotions, relief, sadness, but overridingly, a profound sense of liberation. The expected barrage of calls and texts began almost immediately. Voicemails from my mother, laced with guilt-tripping and accusations of selfishness. How could you be so cruel to your sister? You'll ruin her special day. Text from Bonnie, oscillating between tearful victimhood and outright rage. Father left a curt message about my shocking disrespect and the embarrassment I was causing the family. I didn't engage. Instead, I called Aunt Carol. I explained, briefly and politely, that due to fundamental disagreements, I would not be attending the wedding and asked her to respect my decision. Her response was a quiet sigh. Sarah, I won't ask for details. I always knew you were a strong woman. You do what you need to do for your own peace. Her words were a balm. The wedding day arrived. Instead of being trussed up in a bridesmaid dress, feigning joy, I was at a luxurious spa resort I'd booked for myself. As I lay on a massage table, the scent of lavender and eucalyptus filling the air, I felt a wave of pure, unadulterated peace. I was choosing myself, my well-being, over their toxic drama. I spent the weekend hiking, reading by the pool, and enjoying delicious meals, savoring my freedom. A few days after the wedding, I received a text from Cousin Emily, a younger cousin on my father's side who had always been a bit of an observer, like me. Hey, Sarah, just wanted to say you didn't miss much, but a whole lot of underlying tension at the wedding. Bonnie had a minor meltdown when the cake was late, and your mom looked stressed the whole time. Lots of whispers about why you weren't there. Honestly, good for you for staying away. It actually made me think a lot about stuff in my own life. Her message was a small, unexpected gift of validation. It confirmed that the perfect facade they so desperately tried to maintain was indeed cracking under the strain of their own making. The final piece of my disentanglement was handled quietly by Ms. Davies. She drafted a formal letter to my parents regarding the significant sum they had borrowed years ago for Bonnie's ice skating pursuits, which had crippled my own educational plans at the time. The letter politely but firmly requested a structured repayment plan. It wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability and severing the last financial tie that bound me to their manipulations. Whether they'd repay it or not was almost secondary to the act of formally reclaiming what was mine and stating its value. In the months that followed, my life blossomed in ways I hadn't imagined. The confidence I'd gained permeated every area. I excelled at work, taking the lead on a challenging new project that I previously would have shied away from. My friendships deepened, nourished by my newfound authenticity. Maria, my trainer, became a true friend and mentor. I even started tentatively dating, armed with Dr. Evans' wisdom about healthy boundaries and recognizing red flags. The men I met now were drawn to my confidence and intelligence, not to a diminished version of myself. The silence from my immediate family was vast, but it was no longer a painful void. It was a space I had reclaimed, a peaceful territory where I was free to be myself, unapologetically. I learned that true family isn't about blood, but about love, respect, and mutual support. Qualities I found in abundance in my chosen circle of friends and allies like Aunt Carol and Cousin Emily, with whom I slowly built a more genuine connection. My journey from their shadow was arduous, marked by pain and difficult choices. But the woman who emerged was stronger, more resilient, and deeply at peace. I had taken the ashes of their expectations, and from them, built a life of my own design, a life where I, Sarah, finally reigned. Reclaiming my life from their narrative was the hardest battle I ever fought, but the peace I found was worth every scar. It taught me that sometimes the most profound act of love is to choose yourself, even if it means walking away from those who are supposed to love you most.